messy stuff. What's up? I'm Molly and I'm back with Georgia. We're all on the gymnastics train this week. We had a lot of upsets, so let's get right into it. First up, obviously, we always like to shout out a gymnast of the week. This week was quite hard to choose a gymnast of the week. There were a few gymnasts on this specific team that had great meets, but we're going to go ahead and shout out Leanne Wong. She's a senior at Florida. Once again, that was a hard choice for me because there were so many good meets this weekend. This was her third collegiate 10 on beam this week that she scored, which really helped Florida coming off of that loss to Arkansas last week. They definitely rallied in this one. But this is her third 10 on balance beam. 10s are not rare for this girl. I mean, I looked up this girl's history. Let me read it to you. She has scored 10s on each event. Like every event she scored a 10 on. Normally a gymnast specializes in one, but she has scored 10s on all four. However, she has scored 10 she has scored 10s on each event, including 4 10s on bars throughout her collegiate career. This is her collegiate career. We're not talking about her club career, her collegiate career. Insane. Obviously, she's an amazing gymnast all around, but she was a 2024 NCAA uneven bar champion. Bars is clearly her thing. She scored 4 10s on it in the past, 3 10s on balance beam. So we're getting numbers here. She has been the SEC Gymnast of the Week 4 times in her history and a Freshman of the Week once her freshman year. So that's 5 times total that the SEC has recognized Leanne Wong as a Gymnast of the Week. That's crazy. Her career did not start in college, though, guys. Insane. Prior to college, she was a member of the 2022, 2021, 2020, 2019, and 2018 senior national team. This girl is decorated. Like, what is happening? And then she also was one of 4 replacements, alternates, on the 2020 Tokyo Olympics, which, once again, we've mentioned this before. That was such a very controversial Olympics because Simone Biles had the twisties and there were injuries. And so they had to compete their alternates. Florida obviously had a great meet this week, but like Leanne Wong was on fire. I mean, came out of the gate swinging, and for a senior to be competing as an all-arounder is very not rare, just strange. Normally freshmen compete all around, and then throughout their collegiate careers, they kind of find their specialties along the way. Like I believe Livy Dunn only competes beam and bars, I believe. There's a few, Selena Harris is one who competes on all 4 still, which is a rarity, which she's also a Florida Gator. So very, very, very decorated gymnast here, Leanne Wong. I don't know if you had a chance to watch her perfect 10, Georgia, but what do you think about her being so decorated?
I loved her 10, obviously, as Beyonce would say, 10, 10, 10s across the board. And she did this thing, and I wish I could reenact it. I'm going to reenact it as best as I can, where she's on the beam and she goes, "Woocha!" and does a flip, but with no hands, and landed it amazingly. And I literally was just gagged. I was just like, how can you flip forward with no hands?
I believe you're talking about her front aerial.
Sure, yeah.
That's what you're talking about. And she does it beautifully.
How do you do that?
I know. I was rewatching old videos of Nastia Lukin this weekend just because I had watched the Florida meet. Because it was Leanne Wong had such an incredible beam routine. And my favorite gymnast on beam was Nastia Lukin. Her on beam and bars was just fantastic. And so I was rewatching old videos of her, and then I was watching old Olympics. And there's very few gymnasts that like effortlessly like fly. It's very dainty. It's very like feminine almost the way that they're doing it. And Leanne Wong is just one that is able, she's confident, she's carefree in a way. I mean, she's just effortless on the beam.
Yeah, I was really impressed and obsessed. And I want to go try to do that right now.
Well, I think Florida's team in general really rallied this week. Like I said, they had a huge upset last week, lots of falls on the beam. So coming back and just like being able to be like, oh, we scored 2 10s on beam, which last week we fell twice, was kind of crazy. But obviously Florida did participate in the Pink Night this weekend on Valentine's Day, which made it even more cute. This is their breast cancer awareness meet. Everybody wears pink. It's all donated, and it's an incredible cause. Wong was not the only one with a perfect 10 on Florida's team. Sloan Blakely had her perfect 10 on floor exercise right when they needed it. Last exercise rotation of the night. Come on, like, to end on such a good note is so amazing. Selena Harris Miranda tied for the all-around win with a Florida season high. However, I do want to say that Auburn also had their season high. Even though they lost, I think Auburn had a great meet for themselves. I'm really proud of those girls. They had a season high on vault rotation, their first this season, because normally I don't know if you've ever watched Auburn vault, they normally start on vault. Very shaky. Missed landings, steps on landings. They're not punching off the vault quite high enough. They're not flying the same way other teams do. So I don't know. Maybe they had a special vault coach come in. I'm not sure, but they came out of the gate swinging with this one. Obviously, this is an exciting week for Florida. They're coming off such a tough loss. They win, and now they're going into a huge competition with Oklahoma next week. So I'm excited to see this meet. Obviously, seeing all the pink leotards just like brings me back. It's such a fun night, those breast cancer awareness nights.
Florida girls, if any of you watch this, I will buy your uniform off of you. Name the price. I want it. $10,000, it's yours. I want that uniform.
George, you have $10,000.
I'll find it.
Okay.
I want that uniform so bad. And it had the little heart on it. It was so cute.
Yeah, I bet you we could probably get you a nice leotard. I bet you I could find it for you.
I want that one.
So maybe you even want the perfect 10 one, either from Leanne Wong or
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like the exact one. It wouldn't fit me. I could maybe put it on my cat, but like
you would be surprised. Leotards are quite stretchy.
Well, there you go.
I can still fit in my like when I was like 13, I can still fit in those Leos. And my mom kept like a box. She kept it signed by an Olympian. And so I definitely keep that for keepsakes, but like I can still fit in some of those. Sometimes I try them on randomly just to
give it to me now. I need it.
Obviously, it was a tough week for Arkansas. They lost to Georgia. Arkansas is such an interesting team. We talk about them a lot because they are on the upsets. They upset, obviously, Florida last week. They're really good at shaking up the team. Maybe it's just the home meets that they're so good at. I'm not sure. This was definitely a more equal playing field here with Arkansas being number 15, Georgia being number 11. This was a little bit more in their bracket, but like they beat Florida last week, who's number 3 in the country. It's so weird because they're so sneaky with these really difficult teams, but then they turn around and they lose to Georgia, which I was quite shocked by. I don't know if you got to watch that meet. Lily Smith and Addie Wall, who both received 9950s, Smith earning her season high with this routine, and Wall performed a career high on this event. I am shocked by this because Georgia has had such a rough season, in my opinion. I feel like they've had lots of falls, lots of missteps, lots of deductions, lots of missed connections, skills. I'm shocked by this because I've favored Arkansas in this one, just because, like I said, they're coming off of a season high of beating Florida and upsetting them. I don't know. Maybe it's just the energy of having the home Coliseum advantage.
Maybe they weren't like just kind of doubted Georgia. Like, why prepare as hard as we did? Yeah. Like, oh, we just beat Florida. Why do we have to prepare for Georgia?
Yeah. Maybe that's it. They're just a sneaky team.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. It was a little disappointing. But obviously the meat of the week we have to chit chat about for a minute. I watched this live, was a little delayed because of D2 basketball again, but whatever. Oklahoma lost to LSU. This was a crazy meet. Everybody had perfect routines. Like there weren't a lot of mistakes here. OU had some really shaky floor routines. It was their final rotation. LSU has been shaky on beam in the past, so I think Oklahoma was kind of like hoping that they were going to have a couple falls on that last rotation so they could score, the win. However, there were a few gymnasts that stepped on the bounds line, because if you step out of bounds, it's a big deduction. But if you even just step on the line, I think it's like 2 or 3 tenths. If you misstep, we had a couple missteps. Like one of the girls landed a really tricky front full, just a little sideways. It caused her to take a couple steps. That's a pretty big deduction. They were just giving little tenths here and there with a meet that was already pretty much tied. And then you had LSU at the same time competing on beam and was just killing it. I mean, there were a couple routines that even the commentators, which Allie Raisman was commentator, how cool to have Allie Raisman commenting on your meet. But even she was saying, the crowd wants to see a perfect 10 from some of these beam routines, because LSU was just nailing it. Every routine. I think the score that they ended up dropping was still like a 9850, very high scoring beam rotation for them. How do you feel about Oklahoma losing to LSU?
I think that this was kind of like a home court advantage, home meet advantage. I don't know. I mean, they had a sold out crowd of 13,000 people for a gymnast meet, and that's just incredible. So I think that on top of two amazing teams, but the energy is just going to be unmatched when there's 13,000 people in there cheering for LSU.
Mm.
I'm sure there's some Oklahoma fans sprinkled in there, but it was mostly LSU. I am not surprised that they beat them, but like I expected Oklahoma to do better. Like they're always really good at bar, and they did badly. And I was like, what's going on?
Yeah, there were a few missed connections. Georgia, when you're swinging, there's different types of, they call them release moves. Yeah, they release the bar, they grab the bar, but you can release from low bar to high bar, is normally how they're getting to and from. If, let's say, they release from the low bar straight to the high bar, and then they release again to the low bar, it has to be one full swoop. And if there's even a hesitation of a connection, it is quite a big deduction. And you also miss the difficulty of the skill. Same on beam. If, like, let's say these gymnasts are competing a back handspring layout on beam, if they're an inch off, it does throw the whole beam off. It really does. And I think OU actually on beam had a little bit of a scary almost fall on beam. She saved it. But like I said, if you start to flip, especially as a gymnast, I mean, like I said, beam is 4 inches wide. You don't have a lot of room. Like your 1 foot barely fits on it. If you're even just a little bit off, you A, feel it, B, it's really hard to save it by the time you're already in the air, and you don't want to miss those connections. So it was a difficult meet, I think, for Oklahoma. I think they were rattled. I think they weren't at home. They just, it wasn't a good meet for them. However, I was texting Georgia about this earlier, and I want to, have a final segment on the show about this. The rankings are quite confusing to me, because LSU beat the number one team in the nation. And because their average is, I'm not kidding, 2 tenths off, like 2 tenths off, they're still considered number two. However, when you look at the highest scoring meet, LSU has had a higher scoring meet than OU has. I'm not sure. And we talk about, stats and rankings a lot with football and softball. We don't always talk about it with gymnastics. It is quite confusing. I don't really know who's in charge of this. I don't understand. I don't know if you understand the math on this.
Yeah, so actually I'm in charge.
Well, Bama's number one then.
Yes. Obviously. No, but I did see that they just switched from, I don't know, they said now they're doing it by national ranking percentage. And so I think it's like Oklahoma, UCLA, and then LSU. And I'm like, I don't know how you beat the number one team and then you're not
Yeah.
ranked higher than them. That's weird.
It doesn't make any sense to me. And also considering that their season high of a score is also higher than Oklahoma. I'm not an LSU fan. I'm not an Oklahoma fan. I'm not any of these teams fan. I'm literally petitioning for Texas to get a gymnastics team for this reason because
I'm
it's
surprised
so
they don't have a gymnastics team.
they have like a club gymnastics team, so it's not like regulated, which really sucks because I think it would do well. Hook 'em.
I yeah, I actually thought that every school had a gymnastics team until I started doing this, and I realized they don't.
No, because some are in different divisions. Like even like with hockey, like my brother, he doesn't play like most hockey teams. Unless you're in the Midwest, there's not really NCAA like there's NCAA hockey, but a lot of it is club, like intramural, or like his division is ACHA. So it just depends on the school. And it also depends on the sport. Obviously all the schools have football and like the basics, football, baseball, but not all schools have like lacrosse or field hockey, all of those kind of.
Sandy doesn't even have softball.
No, that is so surprised that this is like a locker room talk for us and
Yeah, I
like
know we're getting into other stuff.
other stuff, but like, yeah, I am. I actually was on Twitter X or whatever the other day watching the meets live, and I was like, I want to petition Texas to have a gymnastics team so I can root for somebody because I love the sport so much and I love watching it. And watching teams that I'm really not like a fan of. I love Florida. I think their pink night was so cool, and especially like breast cancer is really close to my heart. My nana had it when I was little, and it's a tough one. So anytime they do something fun like that, I'm all in. I loved the Georgia Gym Dogs growing up, but I just would love. Let's actually make a locker room talk about that. Like SEC, come on, what are we doing? Let's get Texas in here. But anyways, so the rankings are quite confusing. Getting back to this, but the rankings are quite confusing. It's kind of the same with football, even, and we talked about this in the last with Shane Beamer, him and his bowl picks and stuff. I think I don't know who's in charge of putting people where they are at their competition level. I don't know what gives them such grace, but it is really confusing seeing. Just in my personal opinion, I think LSU should be number one. They should definitely be above Oklahoma, considering they have the highest scoring meet of the season. They also have beaten them. Yes, their average is a couple tenths off, but that's what I think. That's how I in my math brain would think that.
It's my opinion.
You don't have to agree with it. I feel like we're going to get weird comments now about this because I'm like, you don't have to agree with my opinion, but it is my opinion that I think LSU should be above Oklahoma. And obviously, next week we've got really big meets, Florida and OU. So it's like, okay, well, if Florida upsets Oklahoma and Florida's technically number 3 right now, are they going to bump to number 2 and LSU bumps to number 1? I don't, this is where I'm like, that just is in my head what seems fair.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I was thinking that they would come out on top. And I'm sure they're probably annoyed that they aren't. I'd be like, I just beat you and you're still number 1.
Mhm. I don't know. We've got a long week ahead with all these upsets. It's going to be such a good week, Ceci stuff. We look forward to talking to you guys next week. I want to hear your thoughts on the rankings. How do you guys think LSU gymnastics should be ranked? For me, number 1. You just let us know in the comments. Make sure you follow, subscribe, like us on all pages, and we will catch you next week.